What if I revealed to you that a man with zero medical training accurately diagnosed more than 9,000 individuals while in a state of complete unconsciousness? What if this very same person foresaw the 1929 stock market collapse, the start and conclusion of both world wars, and geological shifts occurring in America at this very moment? Edgar Cayce, famously called the sleeping prophet, left behind more than 14,000 recorded psychic readings that keep manifesting with chilling precision. Today, I'll share 3 particular prophecies drawn from his readings that foreshadow a significant upheaval approaching America. By the time this video ends, you'll grasp why even doubters are taking notice of what Cayce envisioned for our future. Before we explore these stunning forecasts, consider this for a moment. Have you ever experienced a dream that seemed more vivid than waking life? Have you ever sensed something was about to occur before it actually unfolded? Hold on to that sensation, because what you're about to learn regarding Edgar Cayce will utterly transform your perception of consciousness and the unseen forces that shape our reality. Edgar Cayce was no ordinary psychic. Born in the Kentucky countryside in 1877, he stumbled upon his remarkable ability by chance after losing his voice as a young man. While hypnotized, he not only healed his own ailment, but also began tapping into what he referred to as the Akashic Records, a universal archive holding the soul history of every human being who has ever existed. Here's what will astonish you about Cayce's process. Each and every day for more than 40 years, Cayce would stretch out on an ordinary couch at his Virginia Beach office, loosen his necktie, rest his hands upon his stomach, and slip into a trance so profound that physicians couldn't register ordinary signs of consciousness. His secretary, Gladys Davis, would sit nearby with her stenographer's notebook, transcribing every utterance that flowed from this slumbering figure. The revelations produced in these sessions would transform our comprehension of healing, reincarnation, and humanity's spiritual path. But hold on, there's something even more extraordinary about these readings. Cayce himself retained no memory of what he uttered during these trance states. He was a devout Christian who occasionally felt torn about the information flowing through him, particularly when it went against conventional religious doctrine. Yet the precision of his medical diagnoses was so astonishing that physicians from across the globe started consulting him for their toughest cases. Allow me to share with you one documented case that will send shivers down your spine. In reading 5411, Cayce identified a rare spinal condition in a woman that 3 separate doctors had overlooked. He prescribed a specific blend of treatments, including osteopathic adjustments and a particular oil massage method. The woman followed his advice precisely, and within 6 months, her condition had vanished entirely. The attending physician was so astounded that he devoted the rest of his career to studying Cayce's medical readings. Here's what Cayce disclosed in reading 254608 that transforms everything about how we perceive consciousness. He explained that every thought, every deed, every experience of every soul is inscribed in what he termed the Akashic Records. Imagine it as a cosmic internet where all information about past, present, and future coexists simultaneously. When Cayce slipped into his trance state, he was tapping into this universal database to deliver healing guidance and catch glimpses of future events. This leads us to the first major prophecy that is unfolding right now in America. Across numerous readings delivered throughout the 1930s and 1940s, Cayce repeatedly cautioned about what he called the breaking up period that would commence in the late 20th century and escalate in the early 21st century. He specifically noted that this would be an era when old systems and structures would collapse to pave the way for a new spiritual consciousness. In reading 397615, given in 1934, Cayce stated there would be a breaking up of conditions that have existed in the earth. He went on to describe upheavals in weather patterns, geological shifts, and transformations in social structures that would compel humanity to seek spiritual solutions. When you observe what's unfolding in America today, the extreme weather events, the social divisions, the questioning of traditional institutions, it becomes impossible to dismiss the accuracy of these predictions. But here's the part that will truly capture your attention. Cayce didn't merely foretell destruction. He unveiled the deeper spiritual purpose behind these transformations. In reading 1152-11, he explained that these upheavals are essential to awaken humanity to its true spiritual nature. He declared that souls had grown too preoccupied with material concerns and had forgotten their divine connection. The breaking up period serves as a wake-up call to return to spiritual values. Now, I promised you 3 specific prophecies, and the second one will astonish you because it's unfolding right before our eyes. Cayce repeatedly spoke of what he termed the awakening of the Kundalini within American consciousness. For those unfamiliar, Kundalini is the spiritual energy said to lie dormant at the base of the spine in Eastern traditions. But Cayce expanded this concept, applying it to entire populations and nations. In reading 281-13, Cayce described how America would undergo a mass spiritual awakening beginning in the late 20th century. He foresaw millions of Americans suddenly drawn to meditation, alternative healing, psychic phenomena, and ancient wisdom traditions. He predicted that yoga studios would become as common as churches, that meditation would be introduced in schools, and that alternative medicine would achieve mainstream acceptance. Consider this for a moment. When Cayce delivered these readings in the 1940s, yoga was virtually unheard of in America. Meditation was once seen as exotic, and alternative medicine was brushed aside by mainstream doctors. Yet today, more than 36 million Americans practice yoga. Meditation is now taught in large corporations and schools, and integrative medicine is available in most major hospitals. The spiritual awakening Cayce foresaw is unfolding precisely as he described. But hold on, there's something even more specific about this awakening that Cayce revealed in reading 1158-112. He explained that this spiritual renaissance would start on the east coast of America and move westward, following what he called energy lines running across the continent. He specifically named Virginia Beach as one of the main centers for this awakening. Today, Virginia Beach is home to the Association for Research and Enlightenment, the organization established to preserve and study Cayce's work, and it has indeed grown into a major hub for spiritual seekers from across the globe. This is where things get truly fascinating. Cayce didn't merely predict that Americans would grow more spiritual. He explained why this awakening was essential for the survival of human civilization. In reading 3976-29, he declared that unless humanity cultivates its psychic and spiritual capacities, it would destroy itself through technological progress, lacking wisdom. He envisioned a future in which spiritual development would be just as vital as scientific advancement. This leads us to the third and most dramatic prophecy, one that even experienced Cayce researchers handle with caution. Throughout his readings, Cayce repeatedly spoke of major earth changes that would reshape the geography of America and the wider world. These weren't offhand predictions. They were detailed, specific, and echoed across numerous readings over many decades. In reading 3976-15, Cayce predicted that parts of America's East Coast would be broken apart, that new land would rise in the Atlantic and Pacific, and that the Great Lakes would drain into the Gulf of Mexico. He witnessed Los Angeles and San Francisco being destroyed, with new land emerging off the southeastern coast of the United States. Most strikingly, he foretold that much of Japan would sink into the sea, northern Europe would be transformed, and open waters would appear in the northern regions of Greenland. Now, before you brush off these predictions as too extreme, consider this. Cayce provided specific timeframes for some of these changes, indicating they would begin to unfold between 1958 and 1998 and extend into the early decades of the 21st century. When we examine the sharp rise in seismic activity, the unprecedented melting of polar ice, the rising sea levels, and the extreme weather patterns we're witnessing, many researchers believe these Earth changes are already in motion, simply unfolding more gradually than initially understood. But here's what Cayce revealed that places these Earth changes in an entirely different light. In reading 8268, he explained that these geological shifts are not random natural disasters, but rather the Earth's response to humanity's collective consciousness. He declared that the Earth is a living entity with its own spiritual purpose, and when human consciousness turns too negative or destructive, the Earth reacts by purifying itself through natural catastrophes. This idea might seem far-fetched, but modern science is starting to acknowledge what indigenous cultures have always known, that human consciousness and the Earth's electromagnetic field are deeply interconnected. Studies at the HeartMath Institute have demonstrated that collective human emotions can indeed influence the Earth's magnetic field. When Cayce spoke about the link between consciousness and Earth changes more than 80 years ago, He was articulating principles that quantum physics is only beginning to grasp today. Here's something that will give you hope regarding these predictions. Cayce consistently taught that these earth changes were not set in stone. They were likely outcomes shaped by humanity's collective decisions. In reading 4167, he explained that through prayer, meditation, and the elevation of consciousness, human beings could lessen the intensity of these shifts. He envisioned groups of spiritually attuned individuals scattered across the globe, acting as lightning rods, helping to steady the Earth's energy during periods of upheaval. This is precisely why Cayce's work continues to hold such importance today. He wasn't merely forecasting calamity, he was offering a guide for spiritual transformation that could assist humanity in moving through these difficult times. In reading 26252, he laid out particular methods for cultivating psychic gifts, healing others, and aligning with higher consciousness. These weren't abstract ideas, but hands-on instructions grounded in universal spiritual principles. Allow me to share with you one of the most striking healing cases from Cayce's records, one that reveals the power of consciousness to bring about miraculous transformations. A young woman came to Cayce suffering from advanced tuberculosis that her physicians had declared incurable. In reading 42111, Cayce prescribed a blend of specific dietary adjustments, a particular breathing exercise, and most crucially, a daily meditation in which she was to visualize golden light filling her lungs. The woman adhered to Cayce's guidance with devotion. Within 6 months, her tuberculosis had vanished entirely, leaving her doctors astonished. But here is the extraordinary detail. X-rays revealed that her lungs were not simply restored, but in fact stronger than they had been before she fell ill. This case, preserved in the AR archives, illustrates what Cayce taught about the mind's capacity to heal the body when directed with purpose. Now, you may be wondering how any of this relates to your own life and spiritual growth. Cayce's readings offer specific direction for navigating the present era of transformation. In reading 57492, he laid out what he termed the prerequisites for spiritual development. Among these are daily meditation, being of service to others, the study of spiritual truths, and keeping a positive mental attitude no matter what is happening externally. Yet there's something Cayce disclosed that most people fail to grasp about spiritual development. In reading 2814, he clarified that every soul has chosen to incarnate during this specific era because it presents unparalleled opportunities for spiritual growth. He maintained that the challenges confronting us as a society are in fact catalysts for swift spiritual evolution, enabling souls to progress in a single lifetime what would ordinarily require several incarnations. This leads us to one of Cayce's most uplifting prophecies regarding America's spiritual destiny. In reading 397619, he envisioned America playing a pivotal role in bringing forth what he termed the new age of spiritual consciousness. He foretold that America would become a beacon of light for the world, showing how material progress in spiritual development can coexist in harmony. Cayce described this emerging consciousness as one in which psychic abilities would be as natural as the physical senses. Healing would unite medical science with spiritual energy, and people would recognize their bond with the universal consciousness. He envisioned schools teaching meditation alongside mathematics, hospitals employing prayer alongside surgery, and governments making decisions guided by spiritual principles as well as practical concerns. Yet perhaps the most extraordinary feature of Cayce's prophecies is the hope they offer during what seems to be a time of crisis. In reading 6023, he explained that what appears to be destruction is in reality reconstruction. What seems to be ending is actually beginning. He taught that humanity is not nearing the end of the world, but rather the end of one phase of consciousness and the dawn of another. For those who feel drawn to take part in this spiritual transformation, Cayce offered specific direction in reading 25487. He advised seeking out others who share your spiritual interests, establishing study groups to delve into these profound truths, and above all, applying these principles in your everyday life. He stressed that spiritual knowledge without practice is meaningless, yet when genuinely lived, it becomes a powerful catalyst for positive change. The proof of Cayce's prophetic precision grows stronger with every passing year. His foretelling of Israel's rebirth as a nation, made decades before it came to pass. His account of the Dead Sea Scrolls discovery, delivered years before they were actually found. His warnings concerning the 1929 stock market crash and the ensuing Great Depression, given when the economy seemed robust. Yet beyond these prophecies, Cayce's most significant contribution to humanity may be his teachings regarding the very nature of consciousness. In reading 37.444, he disclosed that consciousness is not generated by the brain, but exists on its own and employs the brain as a tool. This concept, now being investigated by leading-edge neuroscientists, clarifies how Cayce could retrieve information while unconscious, and how each of us possesses dormant psychic capacities awaiting development as we confront the trials ahead, whether Earth changes, social upheavals, or personal transformations. Cayce's readings serve as both caution and counsel. They remind us that we are not prisoners of circumstance, but co-creators of reality, capable of shaping outcomes through our thoughts, prayers, and deeds. The Sleeping Prophet's message is fundamentally one of hope and empowerment. Yes, significant changes are coming to America and the world, but these shifts are part of a broader spiritual awakening that will ultimately serve the good of all humanity. By grasping these prophetic warnings and putting Cayce's spiritual teachings into practice, we can not merely endure the transformation ahead, but flourish as we move into a new era of human consciousness. The question now isn't whether these changes will happen, but how ready you are to navigate them with wisdom, compassion, and spiritual strength. Edgar Cayce left us a roadmap. Now it falls on each of us to follow it. What if I told you that America's most documented psychic, Edgar Cayce, delivered a final warning before his death in 1945 that could upend everything you believe about consciousness, healing, and humanity's future? What if this warning, hidden within over 14,000 documented readings, holds the key to understanding why our world appears to be unraveling spiritually? I'm about to uncover the shocking truth about Cayce's final prophecies that even his closest followers struggled to accept. By the time this video ends, you'll understand why his last readings were so unsettling that some people wished he had never delivered them at all. But first, let me ask you something. Have you ever felt as though humanity is sleepwalking towards some kind of spiritual catastrophe? As if we're overlooking signs that are right in front of us? Well, you're not alone, and Edgar Cayce foresaw this decades ago. Here's what we're going to explore together. First, the chilling accuracy of Cayce's final prophecies regarding America's spiritual decline. Second, his documented warnings about what he termed the Great Awakening that most people would overlook. And third, the specific steps he outlined in his readings for those willing to listen and prepare for what lies ahead. Edgar Cayce was no ordinary psychic. This man from Hopkinsville, Kentucky, could slip into a trance state and tap into what he called the Akashic Records, the cosmic library of all human experience. For more than 40 years, his secretary, Gladys Davis, transcribed every single word he uttered while unconscious. 14,000 documented readings. No other psychic in history comes close to this level of verification. But hold on, there's something most people aren't aware of regarding Cayce's final years. As World War II was drawing to a close, his readings began to shift in tone. Gone were the hopeful healing remedies and gentle life guidance. Instead, Cayce started speaking of something he called the Great Purification, a trial that would test humanity's soul. In reading 39.7665, delivered in 1944, Cayce cautioned that America would encounter a spiritual crisis that would make the Great Depression seem like a minor inconvenience by comparison. He declared that the true test wouldn't be economic or political in nature, but whether Americans could remember their bond with the divine source of all healing and wisdom. Pause and think about that for a moment. Here was a man who had devoted decades to helping thousands of people recover from seemingly impossible conditions through his psychic readings. And suddenly he was speaking of a spiritual emergency that would demand something far greater than physical healing. Consider what Cayce disclosed in reading 25.468 that stunned even his stenographer. He stated that by the early 21st century, humanity would acquire astonishing technological capabilities, yet at the same time lose touch with the spiritual laws that govern genuine healing and consciousness. People would have access to more information than at any time in history, yet would be more bewildered about their life purpose than any generation before them. Does any of this ring a bell? We are living in precisely the era Cayce described. We carry smartphones that can retrieve all human knowledge in seconds. Yet depression and anxiety rates have skyrocketed. We possess medical technology capable of performing miracles. Yet people are unhealthier and more spiritually adrift than ever. But here's where it becomes truly fascinating. Cayce didn't merely foresee this spiritual crisis, he provided specific guidance for how to weather it. In just 3 minutes, I'll share with you the reading that caused even Cayce's closest family members to doubt whether he should continue his psychic practice. But before that, let me introduce you to Amy Kellerman from Virginia Beach. Amy was among the final individuals to receive a life reading from Edgar Cayce before he died. She was a 28-year-old school teacher who felt utterly adrift in life, despite possessing everything she had believed she wanted. Her reading, numbered 2006-7-1, contained what many regard as Cayce's most lucid description of the spiritual awakening journey. Cayce informed Amy that she was undergoing what he described as a soul initiation. He clarified that certain souls had chosen to be born during this particular era to help humanity recall its divine essence. But here's the twist. These souls would first need to endure their own dark night of the soul. Amy's reading disclosed that she had experienced past lives in ancient Egypt and Atlantis, where she had served as a temple healer.